Well, like you were saying, I have been at Butler Electric for over 30 years. Just a little bit about me. I have had a variety of positions here at the cooperative. I started out in member services. I worked with operations. I do communications and marketing, and whatever really needs to get done, I've probably done it at some point. But I did graduate in 1985 from Miami University with a degree in business. And I came to the cooperative as the first marketing representative because we were just beginning to market energy efficiency and load management kind of programs. I live in Milford Township with my family. I'm married to Jim Herman, who's a retired science teacher. He taught at St. Bernard Elmwood Place down in Cincinnati. And he's also a sculptor, so that keeps him really busy. And then I have two kids. One is a senior at UC, another incoming freshman at Miami, both who are studying now at my dining room table on opposite ends. So we'll see how that goes going forward. But the first thing I should probably talk about is our name, Butler Rural Electric Cooperative. It's kind of a misleading name, but I can tell you how we got to it. It's Butler, although we have absolutely nothing to do with Butler County. We're not a county agency, nothing really completely Butler County about us. We provide electricity to 4 counties, actually: Hamilton County, Preble County, Montgomery, parts of Montgomery County, and then the western part of Butler County. But we're called Butler because when the cooperative was founded in 1936, the cooperatives typically took the name of the county that they were incorporated in. And we were incorporated in Hamilton in 1936. So throughout the country, you'll see cooperatives that have names similar to ours that serve a much greater territory than the one county name that they have with their name. That also is why there are 4 other Butler Rural Electric Cooperatives in the country. One that we're frequently confused with is the one in El Dorado, Kansas. I'm not really sure why, but we are. And then the rural part, we started out rural. We're not so rural these days. We serve quite a few large subdivisions. We have very few full-time farmers in our territory. We have people hobby farming, but they make their living some other way. So we have rural in our name, but we aren't rural in the sense that we can get rural economic development money or any of the things that would go along with being truly rural as far as the federal government goes. But we got started in 1936 as part of the New Deal program under Franklin Roosevelt when he created the Rural Electrification Administration. The Rural Electrification Act passed in 1935. And what it did was made government low-income loans available to people who would organize themselves into electric cooperatives. So what occurred here, those were typically farmers who got together and did this. Our farmers here came together and worked with the Farm Bureau, also Butler Landmark, if you remember them from the past. But they came together and created a cooperative because at the time, this whole area did not have any opportunities for electricity. The companies already created, the investor-owned electric utilities did not believe it would be cost-effective to provide electricity outside of incorporated areas. And they had really 2 problems with serving rural people. One was just too much. Too many houses too far apart would cost them so much money. And then they really believed that farm people, rural people would not use any electricity, that they had no need for it, which was a misperception because farmers were waiting to put in pump systems. They wanted lighting for barns so they could work through the night. all the things that they saw people in town have, but probably farm women had the most pent-up demand. They wanted all the appliances. So they kind of misread that. And when the electricity really did come, I've been told that behind our trucks were appliance salesmen who made a fortune off of the people who just got their electricity. This is a photo, just shows some of the, just how people got together and set poles themselves. The rural people, the farmers, our original members, figured out the cheapest way to bring electricity because they didn't want to borrow any more money from the federal government than they had to. The men did a lot of the pole installation. You can see not as safe as we would have done it, we would do it today. And then a lot of women went door to door signing people up to be members of the cooperative. They paid a $5 membership fee, it's $10 today, but they had to get enough interest, enough people, enough members signed up to get the loan funds to build all of the system. This is a slide that just shows you how much of the country is served electricity by rural electric cooperatives, or just electric cooperatives, as most of them are called. Pretty heavily in the center of the country, but then we have very large cooperatives around major metropolitan cities, like in Florida. Those cooperatives will have several 100,000 people. Around Atlanta, there are quite a few. Also, really large ones in Texas, around Dallas, serving the suburbs of those larger cities. But we are a nonprofit. We're incorporated, but we're also set up as a nonprofit electric distribution cooperative. And what that really means as far as distribution goes is that there are three pieces to get electricity to your home. There's the generation, the transmission of that power that's generated over usually transmission towers or higher poles. If you've ever noticed the really high poles, that's transmission, higher voltage that goes then to substations, which at Butler Rural we own 16 substations that then bring the power from the substation to the meter at a person's home. We're a mid-sized electric cooperative serving about 11,500 member consumers or meters, mostly residential and some small business. We do provide electricity to Houston Woods, our one state park that we have. We have 48 full-time employees. I don't look for that to ever get much larger, but we're not really very big for all that we do, and we're headquartered on Stillwell Beacon Road in Hanover Township. If you don't know what we do or have driven past and wonder, what is that? We've been in this location since 1995. Originally, we were in the edge of Hamilton, I think where Tractor Supply is now. But then we moved out to be more in the center of our service territory. And so we're on the corner of Lanes Mill and Stillwell Beckett. Oops. Just to give you an idea of the financial impact of the cooperative in the community, our assets total about $93 million. And we're nonprofit, but we still pay property tax. We pay $1.4 million every year, with the most of it going to Talawanda. We're paying $580,000 Talawanda property tax. We also pay Ross and Madison Township, Preble Shawnee, several other school districts within our territory. And then in addition to that, as a nonprofit, we usually donate about $70,000 in scholarships and community service, where our trucks and our workers are used to maybe repair a street light or something like that, which we do just as part of our community service. But we're set up as a cooperative based on these 7 cooperative principles, and all 900 cooperatives across the country go by these same guiding principles. which make for a very different business model than a regular for-profit investor-owned utility. With voluntary and open membership, what we really mean there is that you do have to live in the designated service territory of Butler Rural Electric in order to have our electric service. If you live in Duke territory, then you have to have Duke's service. But our membership is open to anyone who wants that service and lives within our district. And those are defined by the PUCO. They set all that up back in the 60s. So customers from other electric utilities really cannot join BREC unless they move into the service territory. That's the only way you can get our electric. We do have democratic member control. We have 9 locally elected trustees. It's 1 member, 1 vote. So our members vote every year to elect 3 trustees. Our accounts, like we might have 30 accounts that are Spectrum cable, but Spectrum will only have 1 vote, 1 member, 1 vote. And then our trustees have to reside within the districts, one of the 9 districts that we have set up, and those are 3-year terms that they serve. Every year we have a big annual meeting at Millette Hall. This is about 900 people that we have a catered meal for, and Miami is great to work with on this. This is the only place that we could find where we could accommodate 900 people, and that is the max for what Miami can even do there in Millette. But it's a really good event. Every year we have a business meeting. We announce the winners of the election and have entertainment. It's a really good social time that a lot of people look forward to. Another co-op principle is member economic participation, and of course our members pay bills every month. But being nonprofit, we give some of those margins back to our members. We call that capital credits. And every year the majority of our members in November will get some capital credits based on a capital credit check based on their patronage. So if you use more electricity, you're going to get more of that margin back. This is also part of an estate. If a member passes away, has an account in their name, then capital credits are paid out in a lump sum as part of their estate. Like I said, there are 900 electric cooperatives in the country, but each one is individually controlled by their own board. We have a general manager who reports to the Board of Trustees, and then we also have an attorney that reports to the Board of Trustees. Education and training and education, training, information are a big part of what we do. It's another one of the 7 cooperatives. So our mission is really to educate people about electricity, and that's why energy efficiency has always been very important to us. And you might think it's counterintuitive that a company that sells electricity would try to be finding ways for people to use less electricity. But we believe that energy efficiency is the best use of electricity for our members. And so we want to help them have an affordable bill. We want to educate them on geothermal heating and cooling systems and efficient water heating and insulation and all of those kind of things to make their home comfortable and make their electric bill affordable. We have electric vehicle events. Electric vehicles are very exciting coming on the scene. And for many, many years, probably closer to 35 years, we've supported Miami in some way. For years, it was through projects with the IES students. Even the current CEO of Buckeye Power is a former IES graduate. But in the last couple of years, we've been working more with Miami's engineering students. They have a lot of involvement in different parts of our business, so we've been able to support them and their projects and get to know them, which has been really fun, I think, for all of us. Safety training is huge. We have a safety and compliance manager on staff because the work that our linemen do is very dangerous. And our compliance manager goes to different fire departments and teaches fighters about how to interact with the meter if they have a house on fire. We do a lot in the way of safety demos for kids and those kind of things. We also keep in touch with our members by sending out a monthly magazine. For years it was called Country Living, but now it's called Ohio Cooperative Living. I think that kind of goes to the less rural and less country that we've all become, all the co-ops in Ohio. And there are about 24 co-ops in Ohio. But this magazine goes out every month. We create the center section, the local pages of it, but the rest of it is created in Columbus at our Ohio Electric Cooperatives headquarters there. And this is just a cover of our January magazine where we sent 3 of our local kids to Washington. We've been doing that probably for 60 years, sending kids from each cooperative across the nation, sends kids to Washington, D.C. for what's known as the youth tour. Probably the most famous one to ever go to on the youth tour is Tim Cook from Apple, who talked about that in one of his graduation speeches. So very popular. Cooperation among cooperatives is very important to us. If another cooperative needs help, even though we're separate entities, we do come together to help. We share knowledge. Sometimes we share employees, but we do have a national rural electric cooperative association has an international program, which I'm sure they've had probably for 60 years. And our Ohio linemen, though, have been going to a small village in Guatemala for the past probably 5 years. Different guys can volunteer to go and help a village get electricity and help them set up an electric cooperative. The guys that we sent this year were pretty much the last plane getting out of Guatemala as COVID-19 was hitting, and they even had to, I think, pull some strings with our senators to get them back home. But very beneficial to everyone that has gone. And then we also help each other out if there's a big storm. It's not uncommon for us to send a crew to a big hurricane to do restoration or any kind of damage like that. We've had our own crews that were sent to Katrina, to Ike, to different hurricanes. It's the current situation. We haven't had to send anyone, but we do that. So they'll come here if we need them, and we've had to have other crews come here before. This is just 4 of our linemen who really, they enjoy their work, and they do an awesome job for us. Concern from community, also a very important part of our cooperative business model. Our mission is to be a dynamic, progressive organization guided by the cooperative principles. We provide energy, but we also provide what we consider other value-added services. And for us, that has been adding electrician services for our members. We had a problem in the past where electricians didn't want to come out to a home that's maybe 15 minutes or 20 minutes outside of a town like Middletown or Hamilton or Oxford, and to do a small job like install a fan or something. So we took on that service, and we have 2 electricians on staff who do those kind of small residential jobs for people. We also have a water heater leasing program because we found that many of our older members were happy to lease a water heater. every month in return for having all of the maintenance and any problems being taken care of by our staff. So that's something that has been very positive. And then as part of our mission being quality of life, we really took on the challenge of unreliable internet service for over 5,000 of our members. Half of them are fine and have really good internet service, but the other 5,000 really did not. So we looked, in over 2 years' time, looked at all kinds of options to try to help people improve their internet service. And we looked into government grants, but that went back to not being rural enough again. And there is grant money that goes to places where there's no internet at all. But what our people had was some kind of internet, just not good internet, not fast, not reliable. So we still have a hope to bring fiber internet to all of our members, but we have accomplished through a partnership with Cincinnati Bell, bringing Optics fiber internet to 2,100 of our members throughout the 4 different counties. And they have started construction, and we've really developed a good relationship with Cincinnati Bell. What we did is reach out to them and ask them if we already had to buy or already had to install fiber internet to our 16 substations. Is there a way that our members can benefit from that build that we have to do anyway? And they got pretty creative and made that happen. So some people are benefiting from that right now as it's getting started. In July, we typically have a big event called Family Day. If you've ever driven past here, it's like 3,000 people. And that's our event for our young families. Annual meeting gets a lot of our older members, and they have a lot of fun there. But Family Day brings people, young families, to an event here. Everything's free, ice cream and hot dogs and clowns, and it's really a good time. So I'm hopeful that next year we'll get to have that again and bring some kids back like we have in the past. The Community Connection, you may have heard of the Butler Rural Community Connection. It's a foundation set up in 1995 where members can round up their electric bill. It's voluntary. And a fund is created, and those grants are awarded back to local organizations, volunteer fire departments, the schools, all different kinds of organizations apply for that money. And we have a separate board that sees to that foundation. This is just a picture I've always loved of award we gave to the Butler County Child Development Center for an infant treadway, or infant treadmill, so this little guy could learn how to walk better. And was very appreciated by that family, and is still being used all over the child development area. Lots of people want to know where we get our power from. Our baseload power is coal-fired, coming from the Buckeye Power plant, which is a cooperative itself. It's a generation and transmission cooperative that we as a cooperative own a part of. So we are members of that cooperative. Buckeye Power, it's located down on the Ohio River near Brillion, Ohio. It was built in 1968 with AEP, and it provides the majority of our power at this time. One of the things that Buckeye Power and the cooperatives did early on, and this is really when I got started with the cooperative, was a program called load management. This was not something that investor-owned utilities did, but because electric cooperatives are cost-based, we were always looking for ways not to build another power plant. And the way to do that was to manage the load during the electric load during peak times, because a power plant has to be able to always operate at its peak, even though practically every other day of the year, it is not being operated to that extent. The costs, though, still have to be accounted for, and this because the power plant has to be big enough to handle the load at the peak time. So what we did develop then at Buckeye Power were devices, radio-controlled devices, initially installed on electric water heaters. So if we got word that due to weather conditions, maybe it was going to be below 10 degrees in the winter, we would gear up for that peak alert time at the power plant by sending a radio signal to devices on electric water heaters and essentially turning them off during that time period. And this was a voluntary program. 3/4 of our people were willing to participate in that voluntary conservation in order to hold down their costs and also to get a credit, give like a $4 credit on their bill each month. We've continued to expand this program. Now we have devices on air conditioning units and also geothermal heating and cooling systems, so that in the summer when we're having really intense heat and we're looking at a peak time, maybe from 2 to 7 in the afternoon, then we will send out a signal. We'll notify people and ask them to conserve during that time to hold down their costs. And the electric cooperatives across the country have been hugely successful with this type of voluntary conservation, to the point that now it is offered by investor-owned utilities as well, but they're usually being mandated to do it. And we did it as a voluntary option. So we did completely avoid building the second power plant that was on the drawing board. That would have been another coal-fired plant. So today we have, of course, our big power plant that we're dependent on, but we're beginning to have more of a mix of power and trying to figure out ways to start to transition away from that big coal-fired plant. We have 2 smaller coal-fired plants that Buckeye Power owns, Clifty Creek and Kyger Creek, but we also now have built peaking plants, gas-fired peaking plants, and these are small units that come on to provide electricity just during those really intense weather conditions where the load goes really high. And most of that is happening in the summer now. It still can happen in the winter as well. But these big facilities have maybe 2 people staffing them, and they're only really activated during a peak day, a peak period. We keep adding more types of power to our mix. We have community solar arrays now throughout the state. We have anaerobic digesters. We have gas generation through methane. We also get some of our power, hydropower, from upstate New York, from the Niagara River. But you can see that we still don't have the enough megawatts coming from different sources to replace the 1,200 megawatts that we need still from that base load generation. But we are working toward that. Renewable energy, a very exciting change for us in the industry. I think electric vehicles and renewable energy in my career are the 2 most exciting things coming about. We have here at the cooperative, we own the property across the street. If you've ever driven down Lanes Mill Road, you would see our community solar project that was owned by, it's owned by Buckeye Power because they do generation. We are not a generation company. But the 228 panels that we have there generate about as much electricity as 6 homes on a good month. I mean, of course, it goes up and down, and our members can always look on our website to see how much is being created or how much power is being generated in a given time. But what we did with that is give our members the opportunity to participate in community solar by subscribing to up to 5 panels for 20-year periods. So they pay a little bit extra on their bill each month, but they're supporting the installation of renewable projects. And this is just a picture of the people who are participating. When we opened up the community solar project, we had a big event, and we worked hard on our signage that we have there because we want people who stop by to take a look to understand how renewable energy is made. You know, it's not just abracadabra, the sun hits the panel and then the meter turns. It's more, there's more to it than that, and we want people to begin to understand and how it works. And with that, we do have more and more members putting in their own solar panels on their home. We have maybe only 2 people who have windmills. The majority is going in as rooftop solar. And we have a manual that people have to follow to make sure everything integrates into our system and that it's safe, so there's no way our linemen can get injured with some kind of a back feed or something like that. So there are, you know, some requirements that go on with it. But because we're just a distribution cooperative, they have to maintain, they have to be 25 kilowatts or less. If someone puts in something larger than that, that becomes a true generation facility and falls into a whole different, falls into the same rules as Buckeye Power, which can really increase the cost for a resident. But these are becoming more and more popular throughout the area. Because we were created, you know, in Washington, electric cooperatives still take part and are very aware of what goes on in Washington. We have a PAC that our members can belong to. It's called COPA, or Co-op Owners for Political Action. And that was really set up in 1973 when Richard Nixon wanted to eliminate all RUS funding, which would have made it very difficult for cooperatives to exist. The fact that we've been able to borrow money at lower rates through the government has made it possible to provide electricity in areas where it is more expensive to provide it. So we've done a lot now to protect the cooperative form of business, and there's a big legislative conference every year where we go and talk about our needs and just make our voices heard there. And then our future challenges, we have some pretty significant ones. Transitioning from fossil fuel, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the grid, a lot of equipment in order to switch from fossil fuels to renewables in a seamless manner. I think you'll begin to hear a lot more about time of use. And what that's really referring to is, in a 24-hour period, every kilowatt hour is not created at the same cost. During that peak time that I kind of refer to with load management, if power companies have to go out into the market and buy extra power and that kind of thing, then the kilowatt hours produced become much more expensive. So I think you'll begin to see incentives for people to use kilowatt hours when they are more readily available and cheaper, like in the middle of the night and that kind of thing. And I think that will be part of readying the grid for renewable energy. Electric vehicles, a lot of impact on our industry. When electric vehicle is charged, especially the fast charging, the demand on our equipment and our system is the same as adding another house, essentially. So we have to create rates for that. We have to help people understand that it would be very beneficial to charge a car in the middle of the night instead of during our peak alert time, our peak times. I think we'll see more implementation of robotics on our workforce. I can see some line work being done eventually by some kind of robotic devices, just because of the safety risks for people working on high voltage lines. We already see some things like that, where we used to send an employee out to turn off someone's meter and turn it back on. We can do that remotely now from the office. So, you know, those kind of things are all coming about and changing the way we do our work. And the member engagement and participation, you know, where we need to always keep our members engaged with us so they understand the benefits of the cooperative business model and how our role in their community and how we will try to help them going forward. But I think that's it. Okay, went through it pretty fast, I'm sure, but any questions or